We found the stolen cask of treasured pumped-up chocolate.
And now we're taking it back.
So this might be super presumptuous and spoilers for Elbath. However, a little while ago, I did a video talking about how I thought Gunko could possibly be the fulfillment of an Usopp lie told to us in Thriller Bark, and she could perhaps join the crew in the future, because the idea of killing her is a little wild in hindsight and spoilers for Elbath, but we are currently, as of recording, in a Brook flashback. And we're going over the life and times of Brook and Gunko, back then known as Princess Shuri. But I think she is the fulfillment of the lie told by Usopp on Thriller Bark, in which he says to an unconscious Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji that there is a beautiful female sword master carrying meat. Now, with that being said, this is supposed to stir interest in the three. So, Sanji loves beautiful women. That much is clear. Zoro likes a challenge, so a sword master would be somebody of pretty high skill, of which Gunko seems to be via her training with Brook. And Luffy likes meat. So the idea is that somewhere in the future, Gunko will present Luffy with actual meat, like the big sticks of cartoon meat that we see him eating all the time. However, if she is this, and she does join the crew, another thing that she could fulfill for the crew thematically is the idea of the Straw Hats having 3 Musketeers. Now, based on how she's dressed in the Brook flashback, this is pretty on the nose because they are very musketeer coded, she and Brook. But the idea of the Straw Hats having 3 Musketeers came about in the community around the time of Punk Hazard, in which Kinemon was in the crew, and he, Brook, and Zoro fought together against the dragon, and they were shown off together at various points in the time that Kinemon was adventuring around with them. So here's the thought in the process of it, right? In the story of the 3 Musketeers, you have Anthos, Portos, and Aramis. So as it goes, I do think the personalities of the 3 Musketeers do match up pretty nicely with Gunko, Zoro, and Brook, as well as some of their story beats, because Anthos was said to be the oldest, the most notable, and the most mysterious of the 3. This fits Brook pretty well because he's from a time that we don't know much about, seeing as how he existed before the Great Pirate Era, and a lot of things before that are pretty much in the dark. So he is mysterious in that regard. Of course, he is the oldest because even though Gunko would be 77 at this time, he is actually 90. And he is the most noble because he had a very high level of prestige in the Esperia Kingdom even before Gunko, previously known as Shuri, was born. So I would consider Brook a perfect match for Anthos. Now, when we get to Portos, Portos was said to be the most boastful, the most flamboyant, and the most loyal of the 3. This fits Zoro pretty well because Zoro is boastful, as he often says that he will be the world's greatest swordsman. He is flamboyant because he does use a style that incorporates 3 swords, which is often seen as silly by some, but is actually very effective. And he is the most loyal because he has an undying, unshaken loyalty to the captain of the Straw Hats, Monkey D. Luffy. But then when we get to Aramis, Aramis was said to be the most handsome, the most witty, and the most complex because he was a man torn between the priesthood and adventure. This does fit Gunko in a lot of interesting ways because Gunko is the most beautiful of the 3 in her being a woman, but also she has heterochromia, which is widely seen as a pretty attractive trait. This does too create a very interesting parallel between Zoro and Brook because currently in the narrative, Zoro seems to be missing an eye, and of course Brook, as a skeleton, has no eyes. So in that way, I find that dynamic pretty funny. You have one swordsman with 2 differently colored eyes, another one missing an eye, and another with no eyes. So that's funny. But anyway, She is, I guess you could say, witty because she does plan out a lot of her arrow fruit style attacks, which is interesting. She even tricked both Jinbei and Brook in a confrontation, and she is pretty complex because we don't know the circumstances of how she fell into being a Holy Knight as of this recording. And in being a Holy Knight, you could say she is a part of a priesthood, as she has been marked by Emu and is a very close servant to Emu as far as we know. So I would say she is a good fit for armies, especially seeing as how we see in chapter 1185 that she did want to go out on an adventure with Brook if he chose to become a pirate. And seeing as how he's a pirate now, that plot point still could be made good upon if she is free from Emu's grasp. So we have to wait and see. But I do think these three could be our three musketeers within the Straw Hat Pirates, and they might even be called that, as the trio of Luffy, Sanji, and Zoro are called the Monster Trio, and the trio of Usopp, Nami, and Chopper has sometimes been called the Winkling Trio. So we could have another trio in the Straw Hats, and they're just called the Three Musketeers because they are the three swordsmen that we have in the crew. So with that being said, I find that very interesting, and I hope that comes to pass. But if you are liking the video so far, click the like button. And if you want to see more from me, click the subscribe button, followed by that bell so you never miss a video. In addition to, if you could, hit the hype button because it really does help. And with that being said, give me your thoughts and tell your friends about Polypede Works.